Uh, I will share some of the glories which are given in the other scriptures. Okay, let me see if I can get here. Yes. Can you see the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So this is between the sages in Naimisharanya. How many? 88,000 sages who were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So they are inquiring. So what are they saying? Gita yascheva mahatmayam yathavat sutame vada puranarayana kshetre vyasena munidotitam. So these 88,000 sages are inquiring from Srila Sutta Goswami. The sages said, "O Sutta, please tell us the glories of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as expressed long ago at Narayan Kshetra by the great sage Sri Vyasadeva." And Sutta Goswami, who is the principal reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, Bhagavatam is happening in three places. If you are a student of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first, the conversation is between Srila Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And the second is between Sutta Goswami and the 88,000 rishis. So Sutta Goswami was one of the disciples of Srila Sukadev Goswami. He heard it from Sukadev Goswami, and then he narrates to these 88,000 sages who on the threshold of Kali Yuga are performing a sacrifice for 1,000 years. And originally, where is this coming from? This is coming between the conversation between Mahatma Vidur and the great sage Maitreya. So in three places it is there. So this is being these instances. So they are inquiring that in the Narayan Kshetra, what this great sage Vyasadeva spoke. Then the Sutta Goswami is answering. He says, "Bhadram Bhagavata Prishtam Yadi Guptatmanam Pramam Param Sakyeti Kena Yadvyaktum Gita Mahatmyam Uttamam." So Sutta Goswami said, he said, Bhadram Bhagavata Prishtam. Prishtam means that will be very glorious or auspicious. Bhadram also means auspicious. Why? Because their inquiry is so wonderful. He said, "O Venerable One, your request is most auspicious. Indeed, who can describe the transcendental glories of Sri Gita?" Why? Because it is Gupt Atmamam Param. Gupt means that which is hidden or secret. So Sri Gita, the most hidden of all treasures. Krishna janati vai samyak kinchit kunti suta phalam vyasoya vyasaputro va yagnvalkyo atho mathila. So Krishna janati vai samyak. So this knowledge is obviously, it is fully revealed by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And who knows it? Kinchit kunti suta phalam. Kinchit means little. This knowledge has been received by whom? By Kunti Suta, that is Arjuna. He has received the fruit of this knowledge. And who else? Vyaso. Vyaso means Vyasadev and Vyasaputro. Who's Vyasaputro? That is Sukadev Goswami. And also the sage Yagnavalkya. Certainly Lord Sri Krishna is in full knowledge of these glories, and so Arjuna, the son of Kunti, knows of them. And Vyasadev, Shukdev, Yagnavalkya, and the saintly king Janaka. Okay. Mathila means Janaka. And then Anneshanvata Shrutva Lesham Sankirtayanti cha Tasmat kinchid vadami atra vyasasya syanmaya shrutam. Others too who have heard but a little of the glories of Sri Gita are engaged in singing them. And so I shall now speak of the glories of Sri Gita as I have heard from Srila Vyasadeva. So this glorification is from Vyasadeva. Very famous verse. Sarvo Pnishado Gavo Dugdha Gopala Nandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. So there are many Upanishads. How many Upanishads? There are principal 108 Upanishads. So Sarvo Upanishado Gavo. So amongst all the Upanishads, this is the topmost Upanishad. Why? Because this is the Gita Upanishad. It is spoken directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And all the Upanishads, what are they declaring? Sarvo Upanishado Gavo. All the Upanishads are personified as the cow. This Gita Upanishad is compared to a cow. And Dugdha Gopala Nandana. And Shri Krishna is the milkman. He is milking the cow. And Partho Vatsaha. Vats means the calf. And who has become the calf? It is Arjuna. Partho Vatsaha. And what is he drinking? He is drinking Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. The nectar of the Gita is the milk. And the fortunate devotees are also the enjoyers of this milk. And to give this nectar, Krishna became the charioteer. Sarthayam Arjuna Syado Kurvan Gita Amritam Dado Lokatraya Karaya Tasmai Krishna Atmane Namaha. Sarthayam Arjuna Syado. Krishna took the position of becoming a chariot driver, a driver of his devotee. Why? Just to be able to speak this nectar of Bhagavad Gita. Kurvan Gita Amritam Dadao. To bestow this Bhagavad Gita. What is the purpose of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita? Lokatraya Upakaraya. Just to benefit the residents of all the planetary system. So Tasmai Krishnatmane Namaha. So Vyasadeva is offering his obeisances. I first offer my obeisances unto Lord Sri Krishna, who accepted the position of the chariot driver of Arjuna, just to distribute this nectar of the Gita for the benefit of the three worlds. What are the three worlds? The earthly planet, the subterranean planets, and also the heavenly planets. So don't think that Gita is glorified, read here, distributed here only on the earthly planet. This activity is there even in the heavenly planet and also in the lower planets. Sansara sagaram ghoram tartum ikshati yonara Gita nevam samsadya paramyati sukhena sa. Samsara sagaram ghoram. If somebody wants to cross over this unfathomable ocean of material suffering, tartum ikshati. So Gita navam samsadya. So Gita takes the position of a boat. By taking refuge in the boat of Bhagavad Gita, param yati sukhena sa. So he can cross over very easily and very happily. Gita Jnanam Shrutam Neva Sadeva Abhyasa Yogata Moksham Ikshati Mudatma Yati Balaka Hasyatam. So Vyasadeva is saying that one who does not want to hear Bhagavad Gita, or one who does not accept the knowledge of Gita Jnanam Shrutam Neva, one who does not accept, or who does not hear the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom from Bhagavad Gita, a foolish person who desires liberation by constant yoga practice, Sadeva Abhyasa Yogata, without hearing the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, is to be considered childish. There are many glories. I won't take many, but just few of them, and then I'll read Prabhupada's purport. Ye shanvanti prathanti eva Gita Shastram aharnisham Nateve manushagneya Devarupa na samshaya. Very beautiful. Ye shanvanti pathayanti eva. Those who constantly hear and they constantly study. What? Gita Shastra. Persons who day and night hear and sing the Gita are never to be taken as mere human beings. Nateve manusha janeya. Why? Without a doubt, they are the gods in this world. So Prabhupada is giving us this position. Gita jnanena sambodham Krishna praharjanayava Bhakti tattvam param tatra sagunam mata nirgunam. To enlighten Arjuna with the wisdom of Gita, Lord Krishna Chandra has revealed the supremacy of devotion, either in this world or in the transcendental plane. So, very, very revolutionary that if we study Bhagavad Gita, if our mati, if our consciousness can be aligned, if our interest and inclination can be towards hearing, studying, and sharing Bhagavad Gita. Why it is so very important? So Srila Prabhupada shares in one of his purport. I'll try to share that. This chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam says that the Pandavas retired timely. This is after the war was over and they ruled for a long period and then they retired. So it says, this is the verse, chapter 15th of the first canto, verse number 27. Desh kalartha yuktani hitatapa pushamamami cha haranti smaratas chittam Govinda bhitani me. So Arjuna is saying, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Try to concentrate. Herein Arjuna refers to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, which were imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of great historical epic Mahabharata, which was specially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, laborer, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmana, Kshatriyas, and the higher sections of Vaishyas. That is why Krishna says that Triyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Param Gati Mahami Partha Vipashutya Yesyo Papayoniyo Triyo Vaishyas Tata Shudras Tepi Yanti Param Gati. So this is what the description is. The problems which arise in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, He wanted again to remember the great teachings of Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times. So there is no wonder that Mahatma Gandhi says that when doubts haunt me and when disappointments stare in my face, and I see not one ray of hope on the horizon, I turn to Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. And he says that those who meditate on the Gita will derive fresh joy and new meanings from it every day. Here Prabhupada is saying that Arjuna is establishing, even after Krishna has left, that Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence. He wanted again to remember the great teachings of Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned. To teach whom? To teach us. That Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical time. So whenever in our life we have difficult time, what we should do? We should consult Bhagavad Gita. Not only for solace from all kind of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglement which may embarrass us one in some critical hour. The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of Bhagavad Gita, so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible in material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord. What is the verse? Na bhavet grayam indriya. What is the verse? From Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. It says that material senses cannot have estimation of the Supreme Lord. But his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned soul in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is another form of the Lord manifested energy. That is the Archa Vigraha, Krishna's deity form. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord is also an incarnation of the Lord. So Bhagavad Gita is the sound incarnation. Krishna appears in the form of his sound through Bhagavad Gita. Krishna Vani. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. So whenever we are hearing, whenever we are studying, whenever we are speaking on Bhagavad Gita, what we are doing? We are directly associating with the Supreme Lord through his sound incarnation. The Prabhupada says, there is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord. A faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad Gita. And with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, the living being, which is Jiva, nature, Prakriti, time and space, that is Kalaha, and the process of activity, which is Karma. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is the inert matter displaying the interactions of 3 different modes, and the eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of the material nature. Activities of the living being are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later these subject matters are elaborated in Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature, and time and space are eternal, but the living entity, are eternal, but the living entity, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus, it can cease its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognition, and both have the sense of identification of being conscious as a living force. But the living being under the condition of material nature, called the Mahatattva, misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scene, different from the Lord in a sense of his eternal existence, of his being situated, cognizant of knowledge. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living being revives his real identity as an individual being on the same transcendental platform as the Lord. As conscious being, both the Lord and the living being are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but the sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is a distinction of the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of Bhagavad Gita stands on this principle. Just a little more. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatan or eternal, and the Lord's abode far beyond the material sky is also described as Sanatan. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatan existence of the Lord. This is Prabhupada is the real ambassador of the Sanatan Dham. He is inviting. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatan existence of the Lord. And the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatan Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called, in different stages, fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to the transcendental realizations. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above items in relation to the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being as directed in the Vedas can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to the stage of knowledge. This purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called Gyan, or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problem of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter and proves by all reasons and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, and that the outer covering of matter, the body and the mind, change for another term of material existence which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different type of miseries, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shri Gita Jayanti ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much for hearing, but please try to share, distribute the greatest welfare. Krishna is speaking. One verse I had selected from today's recitation, verse number 71. I'll take just 2 more minutes. This is 18.71. This verse struck me today. It says, one who listens with faith and without envy, just the glory of hearing. Shraddhavan anusuyascha shunyad api yo naraha. So api mukta subhal lokan prapnuyad punya karmanam. 18.71. One who listens with faith and without envy becomes free from sinful reactions and attains to the auspicious planet where the pious dwells. So all of you heard So my request is the request of Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas that please try to distribute. Try and distribute as much as possible. We will have to take some pain, and without taking pain, we will not get the gain. So please profusely try to distribute Bhagavad Gita, whom all you know, even to those you do not know.